Hi everyone, my name is Jackie and I'm here to answer your questions about being a registered nurse. You all sent in so many great questions about what it takes to work in this field, and I'm excited to answer some of these questions for you. So let's get started. How do you manage to stay resilient and maintain your mental and emotional well-being, especially during challenging shifts? This is a great question. So my background is in oncology nursing, and there can be a lot of emotion associated with that. Oncology nursing is all focused around cancer and cancer care. So you can deal with all spectrums of a cancer diagnosis, from a new diagnosis to treatment, really hard treatment, to even end-of-life care. And so there's a lot of emotion that you're dealing with when you're taking care of your patient, and especially also that impact it has on the patient's family as well. So, having that emotion and kind of experiencing that throughout your shift, sometimes it's hard to just leave it, in your shift and go home and carry on. So having a support person that you can talk to, leaning on your other nurses that you work with, really talking about your emotions, what you're feeling, anything you experience, what was hard about your shift, all of that, and just talking through it, even journaling about it, or seeking help outside of the hospital or outside of your support group is really essential. It's hard to deal with some of that end-of-life care or some of those really challenging diagnoses. So being able to talk about your feelings and your emotions really makes you a better nurse and probably just feel more centered and stable in your personal life as well. What classes do you suggest I take senior year if I want to be a nurse? A great question. So I would suggest anything in the sciences. So biology, chemistry, anything like that. So when you're in nursing school, you are going to take pathophysiology classes, you're going to take pharmacology classes, and really understanding how science works, how chemistry works is really going to give you a strong foundation for these classes. So understanding, everything about glycolysis and how our body produces glucose and what that looks like. You're going to learn that in chemistry, but it's going to apply when you're into those pathophysiology classes as well. So anything science related is going to give you a great foundation, and also being confident in your communication. Communication is a really big part of nursing. You're responsible for documenting, for calling, for speaking. So all of that really makes you feel like a confident communicator is going to be helpful as well. How many different types of nurses are there? This is a great question, and I don't know if there is a final number, but there are so many, and there are so many different things you can do in the career of nursing, and I think that's why it's such an amazing career to be in. Out of nursing school, out of being a registered nurse, there are so many different areas you can become specialized in. You can get different levels of certification. You can go into like the ICU and be a critical care nurse. You can work in labor and delivery, a cardiac floor, telemetry. There's countless things you can do, and you can become an expert in all of those different fields. But additionally, instead of becoming a registered nurse, there's also ways to become a practical nurse. And so as a practical nurse, your scope of practice is different than a registered nurse. And this can be a great kind of entry point into the field of nursing. And later you can bridge your certification as a practical nurse into a registered nurse. And when you do that, you have a bigger scope of practice of the things you can do. And then beyond that, you can go back to school and become a nurse practitioner. So there are so many different things you can do, and not all of nursing has to be about bedside nursing. There's ways to become a nurse educator. There's ways to support different companies, or even in law and being a nurse expert. There's different places you can work as a nurse besides a hospital. So the possibilities are really endless, but it's a great field to be in because, as your life transitions, there's always going to be something you can do as a nurse. What was the hardest part of your career and what helped you overcome it? I would say the hardest part of my career, especially in oncology nursing, is really just the unknown. You don't exactly know what to expect when you start being a nurse on day one. You know what it means to be a nurse, but really understanding everything you're going to see on your floor, what you're going to encounter, is probably one of the biggest things to overcome. It's just that unknown. But as time goes on and as you get more experience, you're going to feel more confident. So, for me, the first time starting an IV or accessing a port or giving chemotherapy, just those unknowns of, haven't fully performed all of those things. It's one thing to do it on a mannequin. It's another thing to do it on a person. And so just kind of building that confidence and really knowing that you are equipped, that you are safe, that you have the skill set to be a great nurse, I would say was probably one of the biggest things to overcome. Do you think you would have been better off as a doctor rather than a nurse? A great and fair question. For me, I think the answer is no. I know nursing was the right choice for me, but if you feel if you are interested in becoming a nurse, you become a nurse, but you feel that you are ready to take on more, then that's a great starting point. You can go back to school to become a nurse practitioner. You can go back to school to become a PA, a physician assistant. So there's a lot of possibilities out there. But for me, I knew that nursing care, spending more time with a patient at the bedside was really where I was going to thrive and where I knew I would have the most impact. That's all the time we have for questions. I hope this was helpful. Everyone at UWorld wishes you all the best in your future careers and good luck.